Hello and welcome back to a very special cautionary tale at Take Refuge 3D. This year, for my Halloween render, and I do a render every year. So if you haven't, over the years I've done all sorts of different renders. Some of them are better than others. This was a bit of a hack job. But each year I've done a different render. This is one of my early renders. In any case, this year, some of you may have been watching with me. We live streamed and made a lot of these assets on the live stream, which was really fun. Like this cat, these pumpkins and squashes, and all of that, and it was really fun. I downloaded these background assets, these hay bales, and this guy here. I made this quickly for the render. However, my cautionary tale this year is about render settings. Now, straight away, I rendered a quick sample once I'd got my animation keys in, and this was the results. And I thought it looked quite good. I was like, okay, this is a low quality render. It took a few minutes to, maybe half an hour to render the whole thing out. I did it at like 32 samples. I had my mist settings on. I didn't have the volume on or any motion blur because I know that takes time. Okay, so then I did a test frame of all the settings cranked, and it looked great at first. And if you look at the first couple of frames, it kind of does look great. So this is what I came up with. I was like, oh, this is spooky and atmospheric. But as soon as it zoomed out, I got all of this horrible, I don't know, my mist pass was interacting with my fog and my volume, and everything was just all blowing out. And as you can see, it looks way crappier than the intro video than what you saw. So let's have a look at my render settings and see what I could have done to improve this. So essentially what I did is I had my volume turned off for the first one. Here we've got it turned on, and we're in the Cycles render engine. So I've got denoise turned on, optics denoiser with an NVIDIA 2070 GPU optics. Okay, and I have my volume. I actually cranked that down to 0.5, which is more detailed. And then I think my final render I did 1.25. Okay, so the higher the value here, the lower the quality. But I was trying to crank up a high quality. And in the end, what I ended up doing to get a little bit more quality out of it, we'll just try and select this volume. What I did instead was crank up the detail and just mess with the scale until I got something that looked okay. Because for this render, I didn't need super detailed fog. I mean, it would have been nice, but that second one that you took, I think it took 3.5 minutes a frame, and it took overnight to render. And when I came, I just had this rubbish result. I should have done more test frames to see how it looked at different points in the animation. So if we look at this, if I pull I can pull the volume right up, and that's sort of more like what I was getting. And then secondly, my mist pass turned on. If we go to rendering, let's just render out a quick frame. We'll take our samples down just for the sake of this to 32, and we'll turn off motion blur, and we'll just hit render. And there we have it. We've got the final rendered product there. And it looks quite good. And that's because the settings are correct. But if we go over to our compositing tab, I think when I had no fog, having quite a lot of mist was great. And then bringing that up, so in our compositing tab, you can see that when I've got my render settings set like this, it's looking like rubbish because my mist pass is all wacko. So if I go back a few steps, that was what I needed. But because I hadn't used the volume in my first test render, it didn't correspond when I cranked everything up, and I didn't check my frames. I was rendering it out as an animation, which I probably shouldn't have done, and should have done it as PNG, so I could have picked up on it as it was going along. So just a cautionary tale for you guys. Halloween, happy Halloween, you know, happy late Halloween. Make sure that you've got your render settings tweaked to perfection. Spend a little bit more time on it before you hit, you know, Control F12, because that was a lot of GPU time to get a lot of rubbish. It really was. Like this, yeah, really not great. So if you compare that to this, which only took, like, I think an hour and a half to render, because I dialed my settings in and made sure that everything was tweaked. And obviously I've done some like final edits in DaVinci Resolve to get the color and everything, color space right. But I got a really crappy render by cranking all the settings up and not having them correct, versus having a really awesome render, which, you know, still could be better if I crank the settings higher. But a really awesome render that only took an hour and a half, or I think even only 45 minutes maybe. So yep, that's the cautionary tale. And you can check out my last year's Halloween animation to see how sort of far my DaVinci Resolve skills have come, because boy, I didn't know what I was doing out there. All right, see you in the next one. Ciao.